Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to probably the first Here He Goes Again live stream for probably, I think it's been a good few months since there's been a proper one not on Scottish politics. And for the last few, it's been the Unionist live stream. And tonight, I'm just going to be talking about the news because who hates that? So I've got tonight a guest, new guest, Fraser Hill. Introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Fraser Hill. I am a political activist and I'm the leader of the National Distributors Party, which is a pan-nationalist, all-Britain national party. And I'm pleased to be on. Thanks for having me, mate.
Yeah, thank you for coming in to short notice and just talking about the news.
It's all right.
Yeah, and there's a lot going on, isn't there?
There's always stuff going on. I was going to say, that's the funny thing about the news. It's always fresh, you know.
And
it's always going on.
And I feel now there's a whole new way how news and politics is going. And it feels different than it was, let's say, even last year or the year before, or the year before that. It feels a lot different, but I'm not sure the right word is, but we can feel the change. When things happen, we know what happens, in a way.
I feel like there's a lot of new alternative forms of media being established. Like, you used to have the mainstream media would report on everything, and they were basically your only lens through which you would receive news. That and mainstream media, I mean like the TV and the radio, but I was going to say newspapers as well, but they're still mainstream. But now you have people like yourself and other commentators. Commentation is commentation is basically its own industry now. It's its own media all by itself. And so there's a lot of different sources through which you can receive your news, and I think that's kind of diversifying the political landscape. It's all still the same facts, but people are saying different things about them, and those different messages are reaching people a lot more, I think.
Yeah, and doing things like this shows people that you don't have to, go along with everything the TV tells you. And it's interesting because we're different ends of the country, different things are happening, but we're still affected by the world that we live in day by day.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty pronounced with us in the same country, but I mean, things like tariffs, that's been in the news recently quite a lot. Tariffs that's affecting people all across Europe, all across the globe in some cases. So it does remind you quite poignantly that the world is very interconnected these days.
And sorry, just making sure I got the right thing before I pop it up.
That's all right. Oh, you can pop-ups, eh? That's cool. You got pop-ups?
Should be. I'm just trying to find the right story to start off with because I was not sure to start with a negative story or a good story, but I have to ask you, have you heard of Amelia before?
yeah. Of course I heard of Amelia. I'm not like living under a rock.
You sure? Because she's like everyone's based Zoomer girlfriend, and she's absolutely amazing. Like, no question.
She's definitely like an online thing. I don't think anyone who doesn't browse social media a lot will know about her. But it is interesting. And actually it does tie into the discussion about traditional versus modern media systems. But Amelia is like a perfect case of basically government propaganda backfiring, because the government has obviously tried to prevent. I don't know if they're like a arm's length organization prevent, but they are
Mm.
effectively government propaganda. They've obviously tried to push something here, and
Mhm.
are you looking at it now? They've always tried to push something here to
Mm.
de-radicalize, or
Mhm.
radicalize to the left a lot of young people who are more online
Mhm.
than our older generations. But
Mhm.
it's just completely backfired.
Uh,
And maybe like a few decades ago, this sort of stuff would have worked
mm.
because you imbibe it, say
Mm.
in the school system, and all of the people around you who could possibly criticize it are either like yourself, they're
Mm.
uninformed, or the teacher who is probably going to
Mm.
be in support of it.
Mhm.
But nowadays, Amelia hits the internet the second it goes to schools, but the second it hits the schools, those people, they share it to the internet, those students. As soon as it hits
Mhm.
the internet, all of its value in
Mm.
radicalizing
It's
people
fair game.
towards the left is gone. Yeah, exactly.
It's
It's
fair
fair game.
game.
It's torn apart.
It's
Yeah.
like, and I would probably like to tell anyone who's not heard of Amelia. She's from this game. What's the game called again? Because
Pathways.
it's a game called Pathways. Now, Pathways is a game that was designed by the government and I believe Kent Council, or it
I
was a
thought,
small council.
I thought it was Hull or somewhere out north.
Yeah, it probably does
It's
say,
yeah.
but
It was one council, one education.
yeah, and well, the main aim of the game was to Charlie, the guy in the blue here. He was young, starting getting influenced by online figures and getting radicalized and thinking for himself. And it's just became like it was so apparent that he should be asking the government to what he should be believing in and what just it goes so far to the government propaganda window arc. It's like really funny. Um,
Sometimes I get really like blackpilled, to use an online term. I get pretty demoralized
mm,
about the state of politics and about how much
mm,
influence nationalists can have. And
mm,
then something like this happens where the government plays a really bad hand at trying to
mm,
radicalize. Well, I say radicalize, at trying to de radicalize people. I would call it radicalization towards the left. What I'll say is the government makes a very strong, heavy handed effort to influence people and it just backfires. And they show that they're
mm,
actually very incompetent at the core of it and
mm.
completely out of touch with people. And that gives me a bit of hope.
Which is good to realize the left can't meme, and the right can take any concept, including Amelia, and make it absolutely based as hell. And it's actually really funny what they were able to do because this is just the account that's claiming to have a lot of this. The character comes from the game.
Mm,
She's the what is she supposed to be? The like, what is she actually supposed to be?
what do you mean?
Like, is she supposed to be like telling you off kind of character, or is she like the radical
No,
feminist?
no. What Amelia?
Yeah,
No,
she's
she's the bad guy. She introduces the protagonist. What was his name?
Charlie.
She introduces Charlie to right wing extremism. Basically, she invites him to like events and stuff, and
Mm,
says this and that. And it's the teacher who tries to crack down on it. Yeah,
yeah.
she's the bad guy in this. But I mean,
She's the
obviously,
quote unquote really bad person who has a lot of really based opinions, like this one I made recently about the slave trade ending.
I've seen people start to do this as well. Yeah, to make
Yeah,
Amelia
I'm.
history posts.
Yeah, I made her do this. It was actually quite funny. Did you
That's
know that Britain ended the slave trade? Abolitionists fought to end slavery. The Royal Navy hunted down slave ships. Thousands of slaves were freed. That
yeah.
is history, people.
Well, I mean, it's like a basic introduction to it, but yeah, that is definitely a valid interpretation of what happened in the 1800s.
Hmm.
We campaigned for it on our end socially.
Hmm.
We got abolition passed, and then we used military force to make it stop. So
Hmm.
it's a different interpretation of history than what you get in the legacy media, the
Hmm.
mainstream media. And this is why people are swinging away from centrist views. It's because they're getting exposed to different avenues of
Hmm.
education, basically. That's, I think, that was what I think actually crippled the game in terms of its propaganda power. The game never actually engages with any of the ideology that its antagonist purports to espouse. You know, they never talk about immigration on it. They say, oh, the character wants to do this and that. This is bad, this is good. But they never tell you why it's bad or good. And so all the people who come to it with a preconception that it's bad or good just get their point of view reinforced, really. And that's why, right-wing people, generally nationalists, came across it and immediately just started wielding it to prove their point, essentially. And the left can't meme. It is kind of true.
They can never meme. They don't know how to do it. They've
there
tried.
Are definitely some left-wing memes that, they have tried. They make a decent effort.
Tried.
But I do think that the people on the right wing, I'll just say the nationalist wing of politics, really, because that's more what I espouse, nationalist versus globalist. The people on the nationalist wing of politics just move so much faster. They move so much faster, and ironically, they cooperate a lot better on it than people on the globalist side do, despite them having, all of the institutions, the media, the education system. They have unions and stuff. They have all the organization in place to outproduce us in terms of propaganda, and they don't, which is just fascinating.
It's, I mean, it's a well-oiled machine, and they can't combat when AI videos are created like this one here. Imagine your favorite films getting then Amelia just pops in and says the most based thing ever.
Exactly. People have been doing stuff like this for like decades now. Well, Harry Potter's like a decade and a bit. Editing guns into their hands and stuff. This is just the next step of like video editing, basically.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I'm actually impressed by the video as it is, but I better play it.
I'm Amelia. We need to talk about Islam in the UK. Catholic, Protestant, atheist. We're all buggered if Islam takes over. Witches must be burnt, of course, but honour killing your daughters for not wearing hijab is much too far.
But Wallace, dogs are haram.
That's actually quite good art style.
I know, it's really well done.
Pigs are haram too, Pepper. Your entire family line ended.
And forget LGBT acceptance. Muslims will toss them out the window. Literally. First, we remove the Islamists from our government and our country, Paddington.
From my experience,
then marmalade.
30 struggle to identify artificially generated videos. And so I think stuff like this actually has the potential to reach older generations as well. Because they'll see videos like this and they won't immediately distrust them or have an aversion to them. And then, I mean, they hear stuff like that and they think, oh, was that actually in the film? Obviously, it's not,
because it's actually well done considering. I'll switch off the
it's
audio.
AI that took like a minute to make. It's not good for the climate, of course, but
no. But you can see even Father Ted there. That's actually really well done. That just she pops in, like yourself if you've watched any of these things, it can't work. But even say that one there with the
quite realistic,
like that. I wouldn't actually say that's not in the actual set. It's just quite well done.
Yeah.
Like
it's weird how good AI is getting so quick. It's concerning.
It is, but it's fun.
Yeah.
But
and in this case, you're right. It's very realistic. And people who don't know the source material that well might assume, it's actually something that the creators made. So the thing is that it might not even make a good point. These videos, they make it a decent points, but they just occupy the space. They're constantly in your face. The Amelia stuff, I think, has the majority of its power solely from the fact that it has just been everywhere for the last few days online. It's just been hitting the online space relentlessly.
Yeah, I noticed it maybe last Sunday, maybe.
Yeah.
And it was like its 4th day or whatever it was, and I was like, oh shit, there's actually a thing about this now. It was just a random video I saw, and I'm like, oh, I was like, I didn't actually think it would take off, because I know everyone was playing the game, making their videos on it and so on, but I didn't actually think someone would take the character and actually, do this stuff to it.
Yeah.
Because I think what I was told was there's nothing distinct about her at all. There's no her views aren't shared. They're just like open pantry basically of what it could be, and
Yeah.
it's just been made as based purple haired girl. Basically, every Zoomer lonely man's best girlfriend option.
It is funny that
Hmm.
they chose to portray as the villain a young, fairly attractive girl, because I think it reinforces what you could probably already tell, that the government or the people who produced it are just massively out of touch with what regular younger people for sure, but regular younger people, what they actually want or like or think, because it's kind of true on two accounts. I think, first of all, the fact that they never engage with any of the ideology in these games. You know, they don't discuss immigration in depth in the game. They just say it's, you know, that criticizing it is bad, shows that the people who made it, who are probably like, you know, the policymakers and other low-level government people, they don't actually know very well what the arguments against immigration are, and they are just, you know, throwing it out there that, oh, you know, you should just overlook it. It's fine, whatever. That's the first point. They don't actually know much what they're talking about. But second of all, yeah, to choose to portray Amelia as a young and fairly attractive woman is obviously a decision based in the idea that right-wing people are misogynistic and they hate women, and they also hate coloured hair and liberalism and that sort of stuff. And it just isn't true. Like,
no,
you see a lot more, definitely in the last year, you saw a lot more emphasis on stuff like the Pink Ladies and the Women for Remigration and, you know, young women movements that are taking a stand for nationalism. And yeah, I mean, the reception to Amelia has shown that people don't just intrinsically hate women on the right wing. You know, it's like the joke how people say, oh, the left wing friend group is very homogenous. It's like a group of left wing women is going to be all white, all English, and, you know, there's not going to be any diversity there. But then if you encounter a racist, a right wing friendship group of young men, they'll be from all over the world. They'll be of all races, of all, you know, religions, of all that sort of stuff. Because fundamentally, for us, on the nationalist side of politics, we don't want other people to not have a nation.
No,
we want everyone to have a nation, and so we're more than happy to, you know, to see other cultures flourishing, just not in our borders. So it just shows they just fundamentally, massively misunderstood what young people think and want, and well, yeah, it's blown back in their faces really badly.
Yeah, I mean, there's just levels and years of indoctrination at this point, and it's actually really, it's very disturbing how people think what was trendy. Like, see her in general, that's the kind of thing people would say that's the woke left. And the problem is, like you said, they made her actually attractive. And I'm like, it's like, but the whole idea of looking like that for girls back then was to be not traditional, not to look nice, not to be the same. But some guys actually like a girl who's not all that, like, oh, blonde hair, blue eye, traditional kind of girl. They are some kind of different girl.
It really doesn't bother people.
No, it's like you're really trying to make something out of nothing, and it's kind of funny in itself. It is weird.
It's funny because they've exposed themselves without realizing that they are working on years old data, basically. You know.
Yeah, because we see that a lot because, well, there's actually a lot of examples I could pull up, but I remember people, say in Scotland up here, they had a whole stressful time in Parliament deciding about what is a woman and female woman genders, toilets and all that. But then 10 years or 5 years beforehand, Charlie Kirk was telling people on campus there's no fucking difference. He never swore, but...
No.
And you're like, how slow are you on the whole subject matter? Extremely slow. That's the answer. And I actually wonder how long it took to make this game, because just to put this as a concept is like, it's weird. I really don't get it. I really don't.
Yeah, it's not a big game, so I don't think it took more than a couple of months. But at the same time, the thinking behind it is years out of date. You know, absolutely years out of date. Because it is playing very heavily into the coloured hair, young female liberal kind of antagonist, like trope, basically. That these are the people that young right wingers are going to be most against. This is the encapsulation of their opponent, when not really.
No.
Not really. And they don't understand that, because they think that we are purely operating based off of like belief, really. And a healthy dose of misogyny. But I mean, Amelia is British, and her coloured hair doesn't really matter when she's saying the things that we want to hear. So people just don't care on the nationalist side of politics.
No, they don't. And I just find it odd how. Well, I'll let this part play.
Choosing his.
This is extremely bad ending, by the way. Bad ending, awful. The worst ending. The worst ending possible.
Amelia pulls out a machine gun, doesn't she?
And Charlie, he kept choosing his human right to free speech and stood up for what he believed in. This was illegal. Although the police successfully arrested many natives for sharing memes on Twitter, there wasn't enough persecution, and so Charlie and his friend Amelia were able to speak. This was a major attack on democracy, which unfortunately led to the election of leaders who wanted to protect the indigenous and their culture. As a result of Charlie's actions, all the immigrants went home.
Violence, guys,
this,
come on, Sissy, how bad this is.
Which naturally caused house prices to plummet. This unfortunately meant Charlie could afford to buy a house for himself.
I mean, the thing is this makes the opposite heavy-handed point.
With the huge amounts of migrants.
But it's funny, so no one cares.
Yeah.
You know.
Meaning Charlie and all his friends found jobs. Jobs that could have gone to migrants. Eventually, Charlie went on to marry Amelia. They had 4 children, all of which had white. This was clearly racist. Despite all this, Charlie was somehow happy. But at what cost? Millions of foreigners who came to the UK for free housing and social welfare now had to return home and work for a living.
The country wouldn't be fixed immediately, even if immigration ended.
Prisons were virtually empty. This saved hundreds of millions of pounds. Money that could have gone to providing migrant grooming gangs with food and shelter during their stay in prison. And it was all thanks to this right bunch of Charlies.
I mean, it should have all went to Somalians, shouldn't it?
It's very, very, very evil of you to want a country for your own people. Very evil.
I know. How could the British or the English or the Scots dare suggest the countries belong to them?
Yeah.
I know. How dare they?
I think that is the biggest thing, actually, in politics that is crippling globalism is entitlement. Because people are happy to discuss. People are happy to discuss politics with one another. You know, you saw it. You were talking about Steve Laws talking about remigration with people. He will talk to people who aren't from the country. He'll talk to people of religions, people who he would remigrate. And a lot of people on the right wing do this. You know, a lot of people on the right wing, like Young Bob as well, are happy to discuss politics with the people that they would otherwise consider their opponents. But what really winds people up, and it makes me quite angry as well, is when the people we're just arguing with, usually from the globalist side of politics, almost always from the globalist side of politics, pretend or make a shallow claim, or even just try to not understand the point that's being made in regards to being British. Because when we say we are British, we don't mean nationality. We don't mean passport. We mean that we belong to one of the 4 nations that have lived in these isles now. Well, the English are probably the newest, about 1,500 years. Scots, Welsh, and Irish have all been here longer. So, at the very least, people who've been here for 1,500 years. When we say we're British, that's what we mean.
Mm-hmm.
And then when someone else says, "Oh, I'm British," very clearly they are not.
No,
You know, they're very clearly
Mhm.
not, because they're a second or third or fourth generation immigrant, and even if they have made an exceptional contribution, even if they've integrated themselves into our society and they've married a native British person, their children are half and half, and maybe those children have married someone who's native British, and you're looking at like a 2 or 3 generation integration, which I think isn't a terrible thing.
If you read the blue book of Khomeini,
it's fine. Assuming the whole family's law abiding and they buy into the culture and stuff like that, that's okay. It's not good, but it's okay. It's when they claim that they're British that it becomes really hard to tolerate them, because they are just not seeing the point that is trying to be made. And in many cases, they're willfully ignoring it. You know, they could understand it, but they don't want to. So yeah, when you discuss the politics of your country with someone who's only been there for maybe 40 or 50 years, it does grate on you when they claim to have as much say in the future of your country as you do. You know, that I think is what is really crippling their position to many nationalists these days, and is radicalizing many nationalists into the ethno-nationalist camp, is when you look at someone who is visibly not from the country, maybe even a first generation immigrant, who says, "I deserve to be in this country as much as you. I'm British. I have the passport as well." There's a disconnect between what you see and what you're told to think, and people just there cannot exist that kind of disconnect in the brain for very long. At some point, you either break down or you reconcile the difference.
And we saw that with Andrew Gold, did we not?
Yeah, we saw it with Andrew Gold. Yeah.
I don't think. Do we want to watch when he did that, or
which part? Because I've seen the interview.
No, there's a lot of parts, isn't there? Because
there's no.
He did one with Carl Benjamin, and I was like,
I haven't called that one yet. But
that was actually interesting. Like,
I saw apparently Carl Benjamin shut him down as well and said England should be for English people, native English.
And he basically burnt that ladder. Like, Carl was actually, I like Carl,
giving him a position.
Yeah, he actually gave him a ladder up in a way that was explained by Bo.
Bo Dade.
Yeah, he was explained by him. So he gave him a ladder and he basically just burnt it. And I'm like, okay. It's like, but this all falls onto the Steve Laws thing. I guess we could go into that quickly.
It shows why a position like Steve Laws exists, you know, because you could import, say, 500,000 people from a certain country. Could be any country that isn't Britain, that isn't the United Kingdom. Import 500,000 people, and those 500,000 people could all be perfectly integrated. They could all consider themselves British, do no lobbying for foreign religions or foreign countries, and basically be completely perfectly law-abiding citizens. But when you get to their children, the second generation and the third generation, the fourth generation, because there is a ethnic and religious link, perhaps, maybe not religious, but certainly ethnic link to somewhere else in the world, what you see actually is the first generation of immigrants is not very radical, but the second, the third, and the fourth actually tend more towards radicalism than their parents. You know, a lot of the Islamists causing trouble in the UK at the moment aren't first generation Islamists who've just come over. They're second and third generation. And it's because they don't feel intrinsically at home in the UK, and they don't feel very much at home back in their own countries. And so they exist in this very strange black hole of politics and culture. And the natural result of that is to lash out, basically. So that's when you see, in France, you've got people burning churches. Obviously, it's Muslims burning churches. Who else would do that? You've got like the Bataclan massacres in Paris. You've got 7/7 in the UK. You've got insane amounts of terrorism occurring because fundamentally, it's not natural for people to live side by side with other cultures and religions. It isn't.
No. We've got a whole history book of that. But what global leaders are trying to do now is literally integrate religious ethnic minorities, things of different cultures and different standards into the same mixing pot and just say, accept it.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. It
No.
never has.
No, well, yeah, no. Integration has occurred in some cases over centuries. You know, you got to think the Normans don't exist these days. The Vikings who settled in the UK don't exist these days.
No.
Romans who remained.
Mm-hmm.
You can integrate people, but it takes time.
You don't force it. That's the thing.
You don't force it, no. But
No.
also, it doesn't happen in one generation, I think, is the main thing. A lot of people these days, as I was saying about entitlement, a lot of people these days feel that if they personally put in a big enough effort, they deserve citizenship. And I don't know if that's true, because you've got to think, I could go to Japan right now. It's a place I lived for a year. I could go there right now, live there for the entire rest of my life, but at no point would I ever gain 1 percentile of Japanese blood, and at no point would I ever be able to emulate the childhood of a Japanese person, you know, the formative years of growing up in that country amidst that culture. Never would I be able to take that on at the age that I am now. And so I think for first generation immigrants who come to any country, you have to expect that you personally will never integrate. No matter what you do, you should be making an effort so that your children and your grandchildren can integrate. That is that is the selfless thing to do. But people these days are very entitled, they're very arrogant, they're very self-centered, and so they don't think about that. They just say, no, I deserve to be British now. If you don't do that, if you don't give me that privilege and, you know, overlook everything else, if you don't trust the evidence of your own eyes and ears, then you're racist. You know, so it's silly. Very silly.
It's annoying because, well, it's just annoying because this is such an easy argument to win and lose at, but I suppose for years we've into this new trying to figure out the right words, because you say the long version of the words, you end up on the same page as Steve, and I don't want to be done that. But like for years we've been trying to do this British standards thing, like British standards, British values.
Yeah.
And I kind of agree with Connor Tomlinson that those things don't exist. Like, in a way they do, and in a way they do not. There are people who come in here, integrate, get businesses, you know, like Ben Habib that's on the screen there, like this guy here that's in with Scotland behind him. Like, like those people are like integration success stories. One of my favorite historians is a Polish guy. You probably see him in a New Culture Forum, and there are versions of this that work out fine, no issue. But those ones take time. Like, there's a structure of how this person got to where they got to. And then there's everyone else. Everyone else who just, like you said, felt entitled and then was given the pass. Like, they came over here, they think, oh, I'm British now because I can get NHS free, all that stuff. My parents were something to do with the colonies, and there we go. And sometimes we just let them.
We've
had them way too long. Well, 60 years.
70. And when was Rush? The 50s?
I'm trying to
50,
think.
40, 47? It's late 40s, early 50s, I think.
Yeah, early 50s, like. Because the Windrush was just one little boat. It wasn't even huge.
No, it was an emblem, though, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, someone was saying there was no mention of that boat prior to the Olympics.
1948.
No boat. 1948. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Continue.
And that was the same year that the Integration Act came in. Is that the Citizen Act? The one that every person that was part of the British Empire had claim to Britain as well.
The Nationality Act?
Nationality Act. Sorry.
Okay, 81 apparently, 1981.
Yeah.
Oh no, 1948.
No. Yeah, 1948.
48,
So
yeah.
since then, we've actually been living consequences of that policy.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not fully in the space side now because just finished work, drove 4 hours up here, absolute pain. So
All right, mate.
this is on fumes, but it's fine. Yeah. So we've been really living on this there's a few things. We were living on this post-war era. Post-war era narrative. Nationalism is bad. Globalism is good. American big empire kind of thing looks after everyone. Where it used to be us. One day it will come back. And then probably we're going to the 90s where we had this basic forced in from Blair of this British values thing that we have. Because I've actually got the books that you're supposed to, integration books. They're supposed to tell you how to become a good immigrant kind of thing.
Okay.
And they come things like follow the law, follow the rules, democracy, and all that stuff. Those things don't really mean anything to British people. Like democracy, rule of law, justice, that's every country in the Western world.
I think a lot of people couldn't even tell you what rule of law means, to be fair.
No.
As well.
And it's kind of annoying when I see Ben Habib saying this as well. It's like, you don't live in a country that has one, let alone a democracy. Because the Britain isn't a democracy. That you're just lying to people saying that. You have voting systems, but you've got a constitutional monarchy with parliamentary democratic systems. Basically.
Our democratic system is really fucked. Yeah.
We're not even thinking about that part yet. We're just trying to get the basic part done.
Well, yeah. The idea of democracy in the West right now is very wishy-washy. It's very hollow. Yeah.
Like I don't think I've seen a proper true democracy in years. Not my whole life anyway.
Yeah, I mean, they're all subverted these days.
Because it's like everyone can be bought, everyone can be persuaded, and everyone can be tricked.
And you can always pull people into areas, yeah.
Like everyone can do it. If you can promise 3 things, you will get 3 things.
Yeah.
And I took it off, but even that's why we had I did find the video of Carl Benjamin speaking to Andrew Gold, but I'm not sure which part actually is the bit that he's gluing up on.
It's part of the whole interview, to be fair.
Sorry.
It's part of the whole interview.
Yeah.
The main argument against remigration appears to be, and I'm not specifically endorsing it, but I'm just summing up the arguments against it, is that it's not possible. That seems to be the most common argument against it. And that's silly because it doesn't address the quality of the policy or the idea. It just tries to attack it, almost like as you'd attack a person. If I were to go after someone by saying that they were an idiot or they were physically incompetent, that essentially is what is happening to the idea of remigration right now when they say it's not possible. You can never do that. People they're not convinced by that. Yeah, they're not convinced by that, and they will just sit on the idea. And if it ever does become possible, then they'll flock to it anyway.
Well, that's the thing. We have seen it work. It's in America just now. We've got ICE agents. We've got mass deportations. Not as big as Obama's ones, but it's hitting the news. It's happening. It's mass deportations on a scale, but it's just not in this country. Because
it's a start, isn't it?
It's a start. It's not the best. It's not the worst, but it's something. I'd rather have something than nothing. Yes.
It's definitely the Overton window pushing on it, because the fact that even Trump is using the word remigration is showing that, well, probably the most powerful person in the world in terms of, well, I think the most visibly powerful person in the world. Obviously, a lot of billionaires could say they are quite powerful too. But the most visibly powerful person in the world, the person around whom the most other people in the world kind of orbit is saying remigration, and nothing is impossible. Nothing is strictly possible. It's just a matter of how many people you can convince to get behind it and to start making moves for it. We thought flight was impossible a century and a half ago, and we disproved it. We broke that myth in half. And now the idea that something that's not even to do with physics, which does have set laws, but to do with politics and society is impossible. It's just a silly argument to make. They would be much better served on the globalist side of politics if they attacked remigration on its own merits. Because, even someone like myself, who I think I'm fairly nationalist, I don't want to see it become 100% native British. I think we have a right to demand that. But at the same time, our country is generally improved by a very small amount of immigration. Just not millions, not even hundreds of thousands. And I wouldn't even say tens of thousands. We should probably be having 4 figures of immigration from non-native British people a year, and they shouldn't be entitled to citizenship. They shouldn't be entitled to welfare unless they really prove themselves, and it shouldn't pass to their children automatically, for sure. Unless, of course, they actually do integrate in the sense of they marry native British people, because as we see in really segregated communities, self-segregated, by the way, communities, a lot of the Muslim communities across the UK, but also, I guess, Sikh communities, just any community where after a number of generations, they still all look the same, all have the same culture, religion, that sort of stuff. They are not making an effort to break outside of their enclaves. They are making an effort to strengthen their enclaves. If they were all marrying spouses and, say, Muslim women were being wedded to native British men and there was a big mixing pot, then it might be more like America, where you kind of could make that argument, where it's a big jumble and maybe that's not the worst thing. And, the problem with America is that there's a lot of cultures coming in that aren't integrating in the same way as the melting pot of the 1800s, like Somalis and Mexicans and stuff like that. That is what's causing America trouble. But that's just not happening in the UK. The idea of the melting pot never really even existed, I suppose, in America, because there was loads of racism towards new groups that only ended when another new group came in.
Yeah, but, I mean, that's how racism ends. We just add another group that we get rid of the other group. We get
someone else.
Yeah, because remember the Japanese were actually racially discriminated when the war was going on, and then we got a bit bored of that, and we just went back to the blacks. Sorry, that was America. That was America that did that.
We went back to the blacks.
It's like they didn't mind them for so long as they were fighting the war, but they hated the Japs or hated the Asians, and then they just sort of, okay, the war's over. I guess we move to the blacks again.
Well,
I'm over exaggerating. That's how I do these sort of things.
I do broadly agree, but the thing is with that sort of racism. I think a lot of what you would call racism these days is actually generally either propaganda, but more so than propaganda, pattern recognition and the observation of trends. Because anti-Japanese racism spikes in World War II. Why does it spike? Because we're at war with the Japanese, and the Japanese, by and large, employ very barbaric and ruthless military tactics against the Americans. They do stuff like dig themselves into hillsides. They refuse to
kamikaze
is the most famous one. They'll execute prisoners. They'll execute the people who provide care to prisoners. They were barbaric.
They were savage.
They were savage in World War II, and that's why they were portrayed that way. With African Americans, for a long time, they have committed a disproportionate amount of crime in the United States.
Yeah,
that is why they have always had a bad reputation. And when did they get the vote? When was their reputation for a time repaired? It was during the 1950s and 60s when a movement of very well-educated African Americans led the charge culturally and rehabilitated their own image. People like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, they were well-spoken. They provided speeches that were perfectly legible to the Western mind and played on a lot of the themes that we hold dear. about freedom and dreaming and wanting to be something more in the world. And so they managed to secure the vote. And they also employed sophisticated political tactics that we had, used ourselves for a long time, like the boycotts, and the sit-ins. They used non-violence, and they were educated. They were integrated, I would say. But you've seen a big rise in like anti-black racism in the United States in the last few decades, as they have slid away from the culture of the well-educated, Martin Luther King-esque African American, and back towards the ghetto American, because that's what we see now. So much ghettoization of culture in the United States. Young black people are encouraged to commit gun crime, to engage themselves in gangs. The projects are terrible. It depends. You can blame the CIA and stuff because they flooded those areas with crack, but regardless of who you blame, it still happened.
Yeah. But there's also self-blame as well, I suppose. There's a bit of self-blame to different groups. But that's going into the whole racial aspect of everything, because I see that up here for you, the English. You can't really see it, but my thing wasn't even popping up, but whatever.
Anglophobia.
Yeah, Anglophobia. It's like, the question was, is Anglophobia a problem in Scotland, where this was like years old? And for me, I see the independence movement quite clearly as an anti-English movement, anti-union with England and Scotland as the main thing, because keeping it to this country, the independence movement was disguised as the democracy and respecting of, the representation of ethnic people and so on. But you push the bar a little bit, they can't say anything nice about you. Sorry. like they can't say anything nice. Everything is their fault. Everything's Westminster's fault. Everything's the English's fault. Like, I've got countless photos just showing this stuff all the time, and the question was actually popping up in that one was an old article in 2023, I believe it was, where a council was saying Anglophobia is a worse problem than Islamophobia, where they were back there. They were still, no one had really heard the term Islamophobia, and the only thing that ever popped up again was that article of the Scotsmail, and it's like, but there's no such thing as Islamophobia, because the word was made up by the Muslim Brotherhood to make sure people couldn't criticize Islam.
Yeah,
that's a whole reason. But we have a naive population that don't know these things, and you got people who have to research, make videos, and actually explain to you without being unbiased to say exactly what these things are. Because see, with the Anglophobia thing up here, they try and make so much excuses like, oh, it's about national sovereignty. But every time you get an election that doesn't go your way, it's not true democracy. It's literally the socialist, Democrat, lefty playbook every single time. But the right, or the unionists, or UK supporters, or just British nationalists, or whatever, they never fall to call them out on it, but the whole atmosphere is so toxified, nobody cares. So when something really does nasty happen, like I don't want to show the video on here, but when you've got someone standing at the England and Scotland border saying English people get the fuck out of Scotland, you'd actually be thinking that's a bit of racism. But as it was COVID, they were like, some people were like, oh, well, he's just want to make sure, people just don't want to come in. Like, excuse for an excuse. Like, you've literally got someone that says English people get the fuck out of here.
It's plain dumb.
It's real plain dumb, and it's like it sort of felt like containment in a way, and it's annoying in a way.
Yeah, what you were saying about the people being naive, I do disagree. I think generally people are just apathetic about politics. So I would want to push back and say I think by and large people are quite. I think people are fairly intelligent. You know, they just got a lot of things going on in their lives that kind of crushes their creativity and their spark. But with regards to anti-English racism in Scotland, it's very safe racism. You know, you can say I hate Scottish people and everyone laughs, or I hate English people and everyone laughs. It's very safe racism, and also it's a lot like the other kinds of racism, the jokey sort of like xenophobia that we have towards, say, the French or the Germans. You know, we say, "Oh yeah, I hate those cheese eaters," or "I hate the Krauts." And yeah, it gets a laugh out of people, and there's not really much bad blood there. And I think that is what the English and Scottish relations were like before the economy got really bad in the last decade and a half. Because yeah, the English and the Scottish, we joke about each other, you know, the people up there, or
I have to say that does exist as well. I'm not saying every single time this gets popped up, that's what it means. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, that I think that is the majority of like the anti-English hate, so to speak. It's a lot of like kind of, it's just kind of a lot of like not goodwill, but pretty gentle xenophobia where they're different, and you can make a crack out of that. But definitely in the last decade or so, as the economy has gotten much worse, and Scottish people have been able to blame Westminster, you know, situated in London, dominated by English people, blame that for the deterioration of the economy, that sort of anti-English racism has really spiked, you know, because there is friction there. And I do think that our parliament, even though it's not just run by English people, it's got all of them in, Scots, Welsh and Irish, even though it is running it poorly, it's like, yes, it's nothing to do with the English. It's to do with the politician class, the electoral elite who are trying to fuck them over. It's unfortunate to see that, yeah, the hate between the two working classes in both countries is spiking because of this. But I partly do not blame Scottish people for wanting independence with how poorly Parliament has been run. But at the same time, they have to realise, and this is, somewhere where they do have to kind of open their eyes. They're not naive, but they do have to kind of hear this point of view and consider it.
Oh, they are naive, mate. They are.
It's not good to insult voters, you know. It's not good to insult people, I think.
No,
they might be naive a bit, but it's like, it's just, I don't know. The point is that they have not heard the point of view, which is that the problem with the UK is not people in Westminster, English people in Westminster, who are mismanaging the government. It's just the electoral class across the country. And if they were to leave the UK, they would still be burdened with the people in the Scottish Parliament. I don't know what is the Scottish Parliament called locally?
Holyrood.
The people in Holyrood who are just like the people in Westminster or in Stormont or in the Senedd, who are mega corrupt anyway. You know, they are going to get you out of the UK so that they can start filling their pockets more than the English corrupt people were or the Welsh corrupt people were. So unionism really needs to be pushed as a working class movement to say,
well, most of the union moves, most of it usually is.
Yeah.
And this is like one of the things I had to point out with people before, because the most active people in Scotland are the Scottish nationalists. Like, when I say Scottish nationalists, these are pro-Scotland, F the English. Like, they're just called Scottish nationalists because they've toxified the word nationalism to mean, like, just negative. Well, they had a recent budget that did a few things, wasn't helpful, put up a few taxes. But I said, I've noticed the thing that the budget, anyone knows how many nationalists love the government. They never criticize them, and they're hostile to anyone criticizing it. Imagine if it must be to love the government, but also call people scum for supporting the UK government in any way, because they would be so damn fast to criticize Westminster for making a mistake, but they never criticize the SNP. They never criticize their own people. They never criticize anything they do, anything they say. It's all amazing. And they did something today where, here it is, baby boxes. It's a little bit of a random story, but
baby boxes. What, the
baby
SNP?
boxes. Well, we have baby boxes up here. So when you have a baby, the government gives you a box of stuff.
Okay.
Nice thing. Solomon Londani has done the same. So the guy there you go. He's done the same thing. But now the government up here is like, look how amazing it is. He's copying us. Because the socialist guy, he's amazing. Look at that. There's no question. We're just fantastic. And it's like, well, that's costing the taxpayer. Because we've got free travel for under 22s. But that's costing the taxpayer. Taxes are higher up here than they are in England in some places. And you're like, oh, that's not true. Well, Google says different. And
it would make sense since you have free university.
Free university tuitions, free this, free that, free things, but yet we can't do some basic shit. Sorry for swearing, but just like we can't do basic things. Like we can't do basic things like afford 2 ferries. You ever heard about those 2 ferries? Okay, I don't want you to show
ferries. That. Is it like a?
They were like the ships, boats. I'm screwing up my English.
No.
There was 2 ferries that the SNP were. Yeah. There was 2 ships they were trying to build, and it got so bad that it went triple the amount the budget that it took because they were trying to keep the shipping industry alive with this one company. They bailed out the company from administration and I believe the liquidation as well. Went over the budget by 250 million. That's in our taxpayers' money and yours. And yours. Yes. This is your money too because you're paying for our shit.
Yeah.
When they did inspections of these boats, they painted the windows out black to make it look better. And they sent them to Turkey to be finished. So they were put onto a boat to be put on a boat to Turkey, then back to here to be finished.
It does boggle me how we've managed to build such a culture of irresponsibility. You know, because you'll never get Westminster parliamentarians or any kind of UK parliamentarians who will own up to going over budget and spending taxpayer money. They never feel bad about it. And you'll also, you'll find people who are happy to say, oh, actually, we've moved all of our production overseas, or we're doing this overseas, we're letting that be done overseas. They don't take any responsibility for finishing something themselves. And it's not fully their fault. A lot of the workers, they got no say in it. But the bosses, they should be pushing for, they and the government should be pushing for everything to be made in country because it saves everyone money. It saves us all money, at least. It's really bad to see the culture we've built of outsourcing, offshoring, and also overspending, essentially.
Yeah. And it's a shame there isn't enough people calling out, to be fair. I mean, there are people, but for up here, there isn't a lot. And that's why I try to do this kind of stuff up here on this stream. Although I'm nobody to a lot of these people. That's why I started the idea of, the United Scots, where people would move on from this nationalist and unionist, nationalist and unionist. Like, the whole thing just gets toxified. If you wanted to look at politics, Scotland's actually has a really small playground to understand what goes wrong in politics. because you wouldn't believe the job of John Swinney here, the First Minister. You wouldn't believe when the first time that position was made in the 90s, they never had private limos. They actually flew on international planes with normal people. Like, they never had private VIP things. They never had all these extra things to do.
Chauffeured and stuff, yeah.
Chauffeur, and they never added these things. They never needed these things. And you're like, what have we let them do? It is boggling. But like I say, up here, it's just a case of John can come down promoting these new flats, which, oh, that's amazing. New homes. But then what's Niall actually said? Niall was one of the guests I had on my podcast once. Well, if he was to make Bute House, basically Scotland number 10, land for Scottish families in order to build their homes, the last thing is need to put our people on a mortgage for life and broken financial system.
Built.
Yeah, for 50 square feet flat where you hear the neighbours taking, I'm not saying this.
Shit.
Yeah.
Nice imagery, actually. Good on you, Neil.
Yeah, it's good. He's good on this stuff. And those flats are nice because that's where this is. Well, that's they're fine for this. Because I live in one of those buildings and they're everywhere. But see, if I'm not going to say where I live on here, but my one's 475 for this same thing as what he's showing in there.
Yeah.
That's cheap. For the same thing that's on there. That's a month.
I thought you were saying 475, like that's the number of your door. I was like, that's a lot of flats in one place. Okay. Yeah, 475.
I mean, they are... Yeah, that's fine. But if I go to Queensferry, where those famous bridges are, it's $1,500 a month for the same thing. For the same size, same thing. And you're like, these are problems they need to be fixed. Like, you wonder why young people cannot get the idea of getting homes, opportunities, moving about. I thought, should I start a business? I've wanted to start multiple businesses, but
taxes
increases, move.
Yeah.
Like someone said, "Oh, why don't you move to Glasgow?" Yeah, I'll probably get stabbed. I'm not going there. I'm safe where I am.
Yeah,
and
you don't want to Glasgow.
You go to Edinburgh. Well, it's too expensive because, my 475 that I said. What did I find on like? I'll probably find it now, even if I tried. Like for rent, that kind of thing. For rent in Edinburgh, what do you think I found for 475?
Fucking like a one room.
Not even that.
Not even that. What, a roommate share?
No. Well, could be, but a garage for 300 a month. An actual garage, like traditional little garage. And I'm just like, I get why everyone loves going to Edinburgh. It's a beautiful city.
But it's been gentrified. It's been taken over.
It's actually not that bad, to be fair, considering. Like, most of the areas in Scotland are still indigenous white. So, but Edinburgh is a tourist city. So everything's hiked up and they've got tourist taxes as well. So the government is just trying to make more money as well. And remember, before the SNP came in, you used to go to things like the Edinburgh Castle, Stirling Castle, whatever these tourist landmarks for free. For free.
And now Scots can't get in for free?
No Scots can get in for free. We pay exactly like everyone else for like 50 quid to get into the castle or wherever it is. Well, it's like 30 quid, I think. It's nearly 30 quid to get into the main castle. But they make their bankroll money because Scotland's tourism industry is booming. That's why I wanted to make a business. And it's like, politicians, when they know what they're doing, they can make things work. But not everything.
I don't know. I think the solution is a lot more straightforward than people think. for something like that, but
Mm.
the politicians aren't willing to do it because it doesn't win you voters to solve issues. It wins you voters to keep issues going and constantly promise solutions. It's yeah, it's the same in London. You know, I've got a friend, she's an immigrant. She only came here to work for a bit. She wants to work a lot longer than she has and can't find a job in London that lets you pay for a decent place to stay. And so she's going to go back to her home country and work. And all I'm thinking is that's a massive loss in potential, because I mean they got educated here. If they're going to get educated here and take that resource, they may as well be able to spend it here, that resource, you know, that education, that teaching, and stay on. But no, people, we have the worst of both worlds now, because we have people come in, use our education resources, and then they leave immediately to go get better wages and better provision elsewhere. And it's mental, absolutely mental. Every city now is either a shithole, pardon my Scottish, or mega gentrified, incredibly gentrified, and it's
that was incredibly kind language you were using. Incredibly kind.
I know. I think my Scottish is getting better and better.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's bad because people don't want to live in bad cities. They don't want to live in nasty areas.
No.
Why should you have to live in a nasty area? You want your area to be nice, but the second you make it nice, it becomes like 1.5k rent a month, and it's like, well, what's actually causing that? It's not like a fundamental law of the economy, because people have been able to make rent, you know, work for 1,000 years. The issue is that we've allowed to hurt us now the same thing that was hurting people back in the Victorian period, which basically is parasitic landlords and a really bad renter class. You know, I don't think that houses should be something that you can buy and sell and determine a market on privately. I think housing should maybe not be nationalized, but certainly needs way stronger oversight than it does now. And people should not be going around hoovering up, companies as well, big companies, you know, like hedge funds, shouldn't be going around hoovering up land and houses and then renting them out. I think if they're going to do that, they should be selling them.
And I think that's what happens with those properties that you saw there. That's just from local experience, because I know, say, out of the 1,000 homes that's built into that thing, whatever it is, I know at least, say, 40% of them will go to the council. The other one will be private tenant, and the rest will be owned by the company that built the thing. Because mine says a private tenant who owns the building, and they maintain the gardens, or whatever the gardens is. They keep the corridors clean, although people do make a mess of it, amazingly, somehow. It's such an easy thing not to make a mess of, but whatever.
The new Scottish people, man, they're so respectful. New Scots.
Oh, I mean, that's us as well. Like, Indigenous as well. We do
culture. It. Yeah, well, it's because we have allowed people to come in with low standards. Our own
dropped our standards.
Exactly. Yeah. We see it and we think, actually, they're doing it, so why don't we? You know?
Yeah.
I see people littering. I see, like, my own native British people littering, and I think you're no better than animals. Genuinely, you're no better than animals.
Yeah, and they dared to put themselves on a high horse, and I was like, no.
And buck off at that point.
And I think you were right before about the idea of self-entitlement, and I'm like, there's a lot of people who think they're entitled, and it's like, you're not special. Because I remember having to tell off somebody for yelling at a bus driver, young girl driver, for going past to stop, but the thing was, the thing never stops there in the first place. And he was like, you fucking this, you fucking that, you fucking this, you fucking that, you fucking that. And I'm like, mate, calm down. Like, and he was like, how dare you talk to me? It's it's like you're yelling across the bus, like you're at the front of the bus, like small thing. And you're expecting us to be quiet. We all were. Like 15 of us, maybe?
Yeah, that's bad.
And I yelled at him, stop it. Like, literally, just stop. Like, I'll deal with you later. I'm like, well, you're going to kill me or something. He never. But there was actually a young guy upstairs. He just heard everything. He's like, I'm happy you said something. I'm like, yeah, we need to start doing it more.
Everyone should be saying something, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm fed up of not doing something.
At what point in time did manners become something that was so begrudgingly given and shown to people. Like
Mm-hmm.
I ride public transport a lot because I haven't got my license yet. I'm working on it, but whenever I get off, I'm 22 for reference. When I get off a bus, I always thank the driver, even if it's like a nasty driver, even if it's like a foreign driver. I will say, "Oh, thank you, mate. Have a good night," or "You have a good day," or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm usually the only one who does. And I don't know. It's like we've almost built a culture where if you don't get a reward for it, people don't do it. And the second that people realize that, they all just stops doing stuff like that. The second that the second that we stopped lionizing people who showed good manners, people stopped showing them. Yeah. I can't put it any simpler than that. I could just say it a million times more, but I can't put it any simpler or better. Because people don't get money for saying thank you, please, stuff like that. People don't say it. And that's just nasty. It's an absolute rat race culture. And I think it is partly because we've imported cultures where the rat race is normalized and manners aren't. And also our own media have basically made us into economic cogs and boiled us down until we're just units. And units don't need to say please and thank you because units should just shut their mouths and work. So it's demoralizing, really demoralizing, and it aggravates me and it makes me, hate some of my own people because they should be holding themselves to a higher standard.
And
especially the nationalists.
And I think, well, we have. I still get that all the time. I'm just the moody bastard on the other end of that. So I'm not going to say any more to jeopardize anything. But there's still good people out there. There's so much the others out there who make things worse. And it's annoying. It is, because I'm the one that would actually criticize people the most. It's like, you feel like... No, I don't feel like. I know people say they want to blame everything on a politician. They want to blame everything on a company.
On foreigners.
But foreigners, something else. Not me. I'm innocent. I'm pure of heart. And it's nothing to do with me. I'm just the victim. But you are the one who never got out of bed on time to get the right bus on time. But yet it's the bus that popped up at the wrong time. Yeah. It's always someone else's fault because people cannot take responsibility anymore. That's another thing.
It's entitlement and a lack of responsibility, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, the only reason I got my life sorted is because I took responsibility, didn't blame everything on everyone. Although I had a good reason to blame some people on some things, but I never holded that against them on a public view. If I was annoyed, I didn't lash out to every single person that existed, because why would I? It's not aimed towards you or someone else, unless that person's being an absolute dick. Then it just, all cards go.
Yeah. It's all off the table then.
So, moving down to your level, down to England.
I was going to say, yeah, we've been on Scotland for an hour now. I'll just stay on for like another 10, 15 minutes, if that's right.
Yeah.
Maybe a little less.
Fine.
I think my dinner might be ready soon.
Yeah.
But yeah. Going down to my level,
it was Scotland and just people in general, to be fair.
Yeah, I think that'd be my biggest advice as someone who is politically involved to other nationalists in the sphere. You've got to take responsibility for your own actions, for your failures, and for your successes, but definitely for your failures. And don't expect anyone to do anything for you or give you anything. If you want something to work, do it yourself, basically. Lead by example, lead the charge.
Yeah, it would be good if people did that more. Yeah. And I suppose the one person we should be asking lead by some sort of good example would be the political parties, where we had some election results within the last, day or two, where the Conservatives, Lib Dems and Greens and Reform were all getting different results, to be fair. Like the SNP were able to hold their seat in Glenrothes yesterday, I believe. The Conservatives were able to hold, Reform were able to gain, even after the news of two Reform gains, a
Reform
Green
lost,
gain,
Greens, yeah.
and it's like, okay, so something interesting there.
It's quite various now, politics. That's probably not the best word to use for it, but there seems to be quite a few political parties now that are all neck and neck to kind of establish themselves as the next big party and the next big opposition. I think the two-party system is definitely suffering. It's on its deathbed for sure. One of those elections actually right round the corner from me, the Rissingtons one in Gloucestershire. That's not very far from me at all. And yeah, Lib Dems won it. And, I think that is because compared to the other parties, Lib Dems should be collapsing on all fronts, but the Lib Dems actually have a very good local activism base. They are terrible at Westminster politics because they don't stand for anything, and all their leaders are always idiots. Basically, they always elect bumpkins who trade on comedy value, which is not how you want a leader to act, really. But they're activists, and the rank and file Lib Dems, the councillors, and the people who put your leaflets through your doors, they're all actually really decent people. Oh, that's my dinner. I'll finish off on that thought. But
finish off. Yeah,
yeah, the Lib Dems. I know, I heard you. The Lib Dems and the Lib Dems. I know. Lib Dems and Reform are both really solid on the ground. Reform's obviously solid in Westminster as well. Labour and the Tories are really solid in Westminster, less so now, but terrible on the ground. And the Greens, I think, are decent at both. But yeah, political parties.
They've got the young people. They've got the young.
Yeah, there's some debate on that. The jury's not fully out, but yeah, they and the Reform are definitely harnessing young people. Yeah.
That's fine.
I'm really sorry to jump off super abruptly, but
no, it's fine. I mean, it was maybe a small stream talk about politics in general, and got a little bit of life stuff in there, which was kind of nice to talk about as well. Didn't get to the whole global stuff, but it's fine. We've got things to do.
Happy to come back soon as well if you want.
Yeah. See when I can get this done. Yeah, we just do this because the world hasn't stopped doing stuff.
No, it never does, mate. It never does.
Never does. Like, you go and get your supper.
Yeah, I'll go get my supper. Thanks for having me on, mate.
Where do people find you?
The National Distributors Party. I didn't even talk about them much, but you can find me on Twitter at Gloucester Patriot. You can find my party at nationaldistributorsparty.com. And I probably shouldn't show them too much since I didn't talk about them much at all, the NDP. But
we'll get you on the next one whenever that is.
If you want to talk about my party, yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. But no, you can find me though, Gloucester Patriot on Twitter. That's Gloucester spelt the old way at GLOSTER.
That's fine.
Funny way, not the full way.
So thank you everyone for coming on. Good to get a stream on. Please follow Here He Goes Again Media or HHGA Media, and we'll see you later. Goodbye.
All right, I'm going to run and grab